Okay guys, in this video, we're going to do greatest to least. We're going to order these decimals from greatest to least. But the difference here, if you see, is they are all negative. So just think for a second about how does that change things. When we have negative numbers, how does that change things? Well, the first thing I'm going to think of is a number line. Okay, so we have this number line here, right? If I start at 0, this would be 1. This would be -1, -2, -3, -4. So you see how it is going backwards, right? 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. When we're talking in terms of higher and lower, greater or less, or least, smaller, those kinds of terms, okay, here's what you need to remember. On the negative side, okay, so on the negative side of the number line, that's this side over here, right? The farther away you get from 0, so as we move more and more to the left, the smaller the numbers are getting, okay, or the less value that they have. Just like on the positive side, the farther to the left you get, the closer to 0 you get, the lower the value, right? Same thing over here. We continue moving to the left, the lower the value, okay? The closer that we get to 0, the higher the value. Okay, on the negative side only. So if you think about it, I like to think about negatives in terms of money. It just makes it easier for me to think about it. Think about if you were to owe me $1 versus owing me $4. Because you owe me money, it's negative, right? So would you rather owe me $1 or owe me $4? Right? That's how I like to think about it. You'd rather owe me $1, that's less money to owe me, but that's better, so it's a higher value. It's better, okay? So let's get rid of this number line. Let's go ahead and look at these numbers that we have. So again, just like we did with the last video, what we're going to do is we're going to line up the decimals, okay? We're going to write them vertically on top of each other. So we have -3.14, -3.04, -4.2, and lastly -3.75. Okay, so we have our numbers written up, and just like we did with the last video, we're going to add that 0 in there so that now they all look like money. They all have the same amount of digits. If I had a number that had, let's say, a 5 here or something like that, I would add zeros on these as well. Okay, but we don't have that. So here are 4 numbers. Okay. So again, we're just going to start to compare them. Now here's what we have to remember. We're going to make that note, right? Here's greatest to least. So I'm going to write greatest to least for my memory. So we need to be ordering them from greatest to least. So I'm looking for the number with the most value. Okay, that's going to go first. Okay, now remember, in this case, because they're all negative, the most value actually looks like the lowest number, right? It's the one that's closest to 0 in this case because they're all negative. Alright, so that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Now, again, you want to try to make it easy on yourself. So if you see these ones place, numbers in the ones place, we have -3, -3, -4, -3. Okay, so I do see one that's different, right? Which is this one, -4.2. Okay. Now, normally, 4.2 would be our highest number, right? But because we're all negatives, this is actually the lowest number because it's the farthest away from 0. Okay, so because it's the lowest number and we're going from greatest to least, this is going to be my 4th number. Okay, so we're almost thinking this in terms of going backwards. Okay, so I'm going to erase that circle actually, and then I'm going to put, this is my 4th number. Okay, so now I can just look at the ones that start off with -3. So again, they all have the same whole number out in front, -3. So again, I'm going to look at 14, 4, and 75. Okay, so again, remember, if I'm looking for the greatest number, because they're backwards, I'm actually looking what looks like the lowest number, which in this case is 4. Okay, that's the greatest number because it's closest to 0. Oops, let's change that color. Alright, so this is actually going to be my first number. And then we have 14, that's my second number. 75 will be my third number. And then -4.2 would be my 4th number. Okay, so it's almost like we went from least to greatest again, except it's actually greatest to least because they're all negative. So be careful with those and how the negatives work when it's negative decimals or positive decimal. So again, I'm going to rewrite these down at the bottom, and I'm going to use green. So my first number is negative 3.04. My next number is negative 3.14, which is just about pi, right? And then negative 3.75, and then lastly negative 4.2. So those are my numbers in order from greatest to least. Okay, good luck with your work today.